phone. Sheriff McAndrew is here. Controller DeVillio is here. I am here, and our solicitor, David Saffanelli, is here. So we have a quorum, so we're going to get started. So we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. DeVillio, would you lead us, please?
Absolutely. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Liberty and justice for all.
Changed his name. Okay. So we'll call the meeting to order. Commissioner Cummings is not here, and I'm informed she's not attending. Okay, and we tried to get Commissioner Notarianni. He may yet appear. We don't know. We reached out to him. But in any event, we'll proceed because we have a quorum. So for those of us who are here, I'll ask if everybody's had an opportunity to read the minutes that were transmitted several weeks ago of the last meeting. And assuming that you have, I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, on the question, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, the ayes have it. The approval, the minutes of our November meeting are approved. I'll now open it up to the public to address the board on any items that are listed on the agenda only.
I have a specific question that's budget related, but I'll wait until after Ward Betty gives his.
Okay, all right. Anybody else? Okay, then we'll move to the items on the agenda. The first item is number 19-2042, a motion to approve all current payables for the Community Corrections Center and the prison. We'll note for the record that Commissioner Notarianni is in the house. He has arrived, so
Commissioner's meeting that was a little longer than it should have been.
I know. We have Commissioner O'Malley's on the phone, and I'm told that Commissioner Cummings is not coming. So I just read, I'll entertain the motion to approve all current payables to the Community Corrections Center and the prison.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Notarianni, seconded by Commissioner O'Malley. On the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. The current payables for the Community Corrections Center and the prison will be paid. Next, we'll have a report from the Community Corrections Center, item number 19-2043.
Brian Jefferson is on his way here. He's delayed a few minutes.
Okay, so we'll hop over that. Mr. Jeffers is on his way, Commissioner O'Malley, but he's not here yet. There is a little bit of a weather glitch outside, so if you're ready to go, Warden, we'll do the Warden's report, item 19-2044.
Sure thing. Good afternoon, Board. The average daily population for November was 727 inmates. 543 were county inmates. As of December 13th, we had 714 inmates. 599 were adult males, 3 juvenile males, and 112 adult females. The population of U.S. Marshal Service detainees as of 12/13 was 170 individuals. Overtime, out-of-county boarding, and community service reports are attached. Staffing update, our uniformed staff on shift is 171 full-time officers, 1 out on workers' comp, 1 out on continuous FMLA, 5 on administrative leave. We have 10 part-time officers and no vacancies for a total of 178 full-time officers. I should correct myself, vacancy-wise, there are 3 part-time positions that are vacant. FMLA, 1 officer is out on continuous FMLA and 40 officers have intermittent FMLA, amounting to 23% of the correctional officers. Budget as of November 30th, revenue was at 97% and expenses were at 94%. Inmates at or past their minimum dates, the total is 25. 14 have submitted home plans and are awaiting parole. 3 have no home plans. 2 have had parole denied due to unacceptable home plans or misconducts, and 6 have been remanded for the balance of their sentences. Extraordinary occurrence reports, there were 3 since the last prison board meeting. 11/27, a county inmate was placed into the restraint chair after refusing to obey officers who had ordered him to be cuffed. On 12/3, a county inmate was placed into the restraint chair after being uncooperative upon commitment. And on 12/9, a county inmate was placed into the restraint chair for his own safety after attempting to harm himself. PREA, there were 2 PREA investigations completed in the month of November. One was a staff on inmate allegation of sexual harassment, and it's unsubstantiated. And one was a staff on inmate allegation of sexual misconduct and is unfounded. The completed investigations have been forwarded to the district attorney's office. Before I conclude my report, I did want to congratulate and let the board know that Attorney Dave Salfinelli just went through our pepper ball gun training. So if he's moving around a little slow, it's, you know, I think he took one in the back. So I just wanted to let everybody know that.
I've got to tell you, it was a very interesting experience. I need to compliment the warden and his staff. I don't think that we sitting here have an appreciation for the quality of the training that's being provided to our staff here. Sergeant Hoy and Sergeant Schimmelfennig just gave a very impressive presentation and instructional segment. It was really top notch. I think we take for granted, we referenced that officers are getting trained and things, but this was very thorough and very well presented. And you know, I think, Warden, you might want to invite the board in the future just to stop in and participate or observe these trainings. I understand they're ongoing in a variety of areas, and they work their way through all the staff. And really impressed me. I really encourage you to go. I don't necessarily have to participate, but I would certainly recommend going just to see what they're getting here, what we're giving them.
You gave me a little pause with your suggestion that we participate. I prefer to live vicariously through your experience.
Listen, I had the device deployed against me an hour ago. Is it pleasant? No, but you know, it's certainly as a tool to protect the inmates and protect the staff. It's a very intermediate type of thing. I know we raised our eyebrows when it was referenced at the last prison board meeting because we weren't familiar with the product. But you know, as I observed, we use devices and tools that mitigate the type of harm and pain and incidents that can come. And these things are actually, some may look afoul at the sound of the projectile, but when you compare that to being physical and bodies on bodies and impact weapons and things like that, they're significantly less risk of harm. I'm sitting here. It's not like we're doing something that's going to injure anybody. That's
But you
just
think
not
it's
the
effective
case.
too?
I think it's very effective. You know, one of the points that I picked up on is they keep diligent records of when the devices are checked out in response to an incident or in a planned use of force situation that they have to act. So not just if there's a usage, but once it comes out of the locker or wherever it's stored. And since they've obtained the devices, they've been taking out in response to incidents 25 times and only had to be used twice. So clearly there's a very strong deterrent effect of that. The inmates know they're there and they want no part of it, and it's keeping, I understand, the situations down. You know, just.
Well, it also shows.
Counselor Cadden, call Bravo. Counselor Cadden, call Bravo.
At least based on that, taking put into service 25 times, but actually discharged twice shows good discretion on the part of the officers.
Absolutely, and you know, the evaluations and analysis of the usage and the method of usage are part of the training, as anyone would see, and I'm really impressed. I was really surprised when I saw it.
Well, we appreciate you volunteering.
And volunteering you. Excellent.
Yeah, I'm not so sure I appreciate volunteering
I
me.
invited that volunteer.
I don't want to speak for my fellow board members. They can volunteer themselves if they want, but.
Similar principles behind the tasers that my office uses.
Right.
Similar principles.
Oh,
Right, I mean,
That's
very good.
They are absolutely trained well, aren't they?
Commissioner, they're very well trained, and you know, in the educational component, I was concerned about the misperception. You know, we're all used to the image of the police officer walking the beat with the nightstick, and we look at a projectile device and say, oh my gosh, but it's really significantly less of a use of force than what you would just not even really raise an eyebrow at.
And that reinforces my whole thought on it was it's more valuable as a deterrent.
That's exactly right. But then they go down to Elizabeth's Doctrine Academy for 462, but learn just so much stuff. They're really well trained.
There, thank you.
okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Warden.
Just in time?
Just in time.
Sorry.
First, though, I'll entertain a motion to accept and approve the Warden's report. And a second? You got a second? On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. The Warden's report is accepted for November into December of 2019. And now we'll go to Mr. Jeffers, whose timing is impeccable.
Report, I apologize. I got tied up when we got back to the center.
No problem.
Our report for the Community Corrections for November 2019, item 1 are programs totals. Male work release had 47 participants and female work release had 8. Adult house arrest had 121 participants and juvenile house arrest had 17. Item 2 are programs revenues for the month of November total $58,191.53. Item 3 are program expenses for the month of November totaled $94,229.45. Item 4 are programs completions. Work release had 12, house arrest had 24. Item 5 are programs violations. Work release had 8, house arrest had 11. Item 6 are programs warrants. Work release has 6, house arrest has 3. And item 7, our budget report for the year. Overtime is at 121%. Expenses are at 92%, and revenue is 88%. Once again, that overtime number reflects from the first 4 or 5 months of the year. Our overtime has actually dramatically dropped over the last 4 or 5 months of the year.
Okay.
Okay. That concludes my report. There is one item to note. Earlier today at the Commissioners' meeting, the Commissioners passed a resolution to go into a contract for GPS bracelets. We are getting rid of the old boxes that we would put normal people on, and we're going to be going with GPS bracelets starting in January.
Are they ankle bracelets?
They are, and they only come as one ankle bracelet total. There's not an ankle bracelet plus the box that you have to set up in the house. It's universal. You can buzz them, you can talk to them, you can send messages to them.
All through that bracelet?
All through the bracelet. In the computer, you can put exclusion zones. So if you have someone that you want to be sentenced, that you don't want them in the neighborhood of a victim, we could put that neighborhood in as an exclusion zone. If they enter it, the bracelet would go off, it would alert us, and we would automatically call them to come back into the center.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Jeffers?
No.
Thank you, Brian.
Happy holidays.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
I'll entertain a motion to accept the Community Corrections Center report, moved by Mr. Notarianni. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So now, we have the opportunity for the public to address the board. Mr. Wasp, you said you had?
Yeah, I think a budget question.
Okay.
First.
Is the warden still out there? There he is, okay.
Right, so my name is John Wasp, county resident, taxpayer. Just a couple of quick questions. I was looking over the census report for this past month. It looks like census is down month over month, 120, well, actually on the 12-month average, 126 inmates. Using the last 3 months, it's down 75 inmates. Most of those individuals were revenue-producing inmates. Of course, this is the state system. So I then wanted to take a look at, understanding that expenses, some are variable, some are not. But I looked into some things like the warden has put out an overtime report. It looks like overtime is actually up right now, which happens around the holidays, and certainly if you use the last 3 months, you've got vacations and things like that. But just wanted to see if I could get some additional information about, what is being done now in terms of expense management to reduce the costs. As I look across this, look at the budget that was enacted for 2020, it looks like in addition to the back out of state revenue that would come from the parole violators, there's still, it looks like backing that out takes 1.75 million off of the revenue side. Just looking at what the reduced revenue was for the previous month on a 3-month average, you're looking at probably 2.8 million in revenue coming out of the prison system. So there's still another $1 million miss, at least on quick back of the napkin notes. So just wanted to see if we can get some information about what's being done to kind of do some expense management, whether it's consolidate units or that kind of stuff for the prison now. And then I've got a couple of other questions too, but I'll leave that for Warden Betty first.
Well, there are a myriad of events that can occur in a prison that cause overtime. There was a spike, you'll notice in that the overtime report, there's a 2-week spike. That was the result of 2 separate individuals that ended up hospitalized for significant periods of time. When an individual is hospitalized, we have to staff it round the clock with 2 officers. Obviously, we don't have that normally scheduled in, so that's it's really 6 overtime officers per day. And if an individual is there for 2 weeks or a month, that gets very expensive very quickly. Then when you have 2 of them, it gets doubly expensive. Regarding any motions or movements or anything that we might be employing regarding the loss of the revenue, we are going to take whatever necessary steps we can without jeopardizing the staff safety or the inmate safety here. And what I mean by that is, the state prisoners that were here, there was fluctuated between 60 and 90 individuals. They're not here now. Predominantly that's what you see in that reduction in the total population. All of a sudden we're in the low 700s where we were always 800 to 900. Populations fluctuate, but we're down anywhere 60 to 90 individuals because of the state not being here. The revenue, just do the math on that one. Assume 60 to 90. You can go right in between the two and say, okay, 75, assume 75. We were getting, I believe it was $65 a day. There's the lost revenue. Any other additional lost revenue? There are other sources there. U.S. Marshal prisoners were running high for a while. They're back down at their normal numbers around 170 U.S. Marshal detainees here. We were running 200 for quite some time, so that might be the difference in that $1 million difference or whatever the case is. You feel free to take a look there. I'm very transparent with that. But in-house, what I've done is I'm studying closing down a housing unit permanently. By doing that, because our population's down, by doing that, I essentially saved 2 officers. Those 2 officers are still going to be here, but instead of having to call 2 officers in for overtime, you got 2 officers that are, consider them like rovers. The guys that used to work in this housing unit that is now shut down are free. And if nobody called off sick that day, that's a great day to go start searching cells and start looking for contraband and other items that need to be addressed on a constant basis. That's step one. We'll see what happens with our population. We'll see if there's a spike. We'll see if it continues to go down. But I have a feeling you're going to be seeing month after month after month of 700 to 750 inmates, and I'll be able to maintain that 1 housing unit closed. And that's good news because, again, it's going to help out with the overtime because I don't need 2 officers every shift, 3 shifts a day, working that housing unit. That's about it.
You said you had some other questions, John?
Thanks, Warden. So Just wanted to see if I could get some information, and I think this is just kind of more generally for the board. I've been a part of a number of regional task forces groups, some that are related to reentry. Here, the Lackawanna Reentry Group, which really kind of started with the concept of looking at the most basic of needs of inmates who were county sentenced here to the county jail, releasing back to the county, kind of eliminating all those funding barriers. And we put together a whole group of suggestions and recommendations, many of which haven't been realized. I went back and I was taking a look at the prison board commissioned a study in 2016 that was done by an independent auditor of the prison and of basic prison operations. I know that the tail end of that document is still available on the prison board website. The tail end of that includes a mechanism for tracking the progress. I know many of the people who were involved in that original group who came up with that, Judge Giraldo, who at that time was leading the prison board, Bo Hoban, who was the single county authority director, is no longer with the county. Jeremy Yale has moved into a state position. The district attorney at the time was Scanlon. That has obviously changed. So the folks who were actively involved in the guidance of those recommendations are certainly no longer employed at the county or involved with the prison board. So just wanted to see if I could get some information about what the status of that is, if changes have been implemented, if there is somebody who's tracking the progress of that implementation using the recommendation that was on the tail end of that, and how I might be able to get results on what's been done with that to date. And I'm asking that question in part because I think, to the warden's point, I mean, there are a number of things that we can do when we look at the efficacy of the criminal justice system. And when I look at the county budget, I can go, department by department. The vast majority of the agencies that are in the county budget are touching or dealing with the people who are housed right here in this institution. If there are 800 inmates who are sitting here today, and you add in the ghost inmates, people who are short-term here, catch and release on warrants, individuals who are maybe with another organization or being held here for a period of time and then being released, we know that all of these folks are using the other social services that are here in the community. And so, when there are recommendations that are made, like the series of recommendations that were made by that auditor, I mean, I look at those, I see some of the things that were in there. We're coordinating the release data between the jail and probation, ensuring that programming for technical parole violators and returnees would be in place to increase the likelihood of a successful release, especially for those who maybe were returned for max. The creation of a behavioral health advisory board for the prison board. And all of these things are things that could significantly change the outcomes of people who are sitting in this institution. So I just, I'm curious, we've got, this is one example of it, the reentry group that I was a part of. I know that's another example of it. I look at the Drexel Center of Excellence did a study, cross-systems mapping. It was funded by PCCD. And they got the smartest people in the county, put them all into a room and said, how do we, where are the intercepts in the criminal justice system for mental health and for substance use disorders, and how do we affect change in those systems? And I know that there were a whole bunch of us who were involved in that, and I know that it hasn't gone anywhere either. So I'm just curious if we could get some information on this, where it's at, what's being done with it, and whether or not things like risk needs and responsivity, are they being addressed in the county jail? How does that translate into probation supervision after here? Those are some of the things that I'm looking to see if I can get some information for. So, I'm really kind of bringing this stuff up now. Today, I think we're coming to an inflection point here for the county. There's a lot of optimism with young people here in northeastern Pennsylvania looking at change here in the city, looking at change at the county level. And I think it behooves us to leverage some of that energy and figure out a way to push for that systematic change that goes on here. I mean, I've done reentry work for some time in my career. I've worked with opiate-dependent individuals. And I've always said to clients and to patients and to inmates and to reentrants, that treatment planning, reentry planning, all those things, I liken it to the GPS process. I say to them, you need to have an address to get a destination from a GPS. And it's the same kind of thing, I think, with the criminal justice system. So I guess, what I'm urging this board to do is, create that vision or adopt it from somewhere. There's already a number of people who have put it out there. Let's put one of them into play and let's see what we could do to get that to move forward here in the county. And if we could just get some information on what's going on with some of the things that are out there, I think it'd be helpful for us to know what progress we have or haven't been making. You know?
I can tell you off the top of my head, are you talking about Tom Early's report?
That's it.
I think that, for instance, just right off the top of my head, we have the Recovery Bank. We have been working with the director of the Recovery Bank, Frank Bollock, and about bringing some of his people inside and here in the prison to help coordinate the reentry. Our reentry task force that is has members of all the local criminal justice agencies and social service agencies. Colleen Orzel. There's been a tremendous amount of cross-matching, if you will, and communications, and so it's moving. Like a lot of other new things, sometimes it doesn't move necessarily at the pace that that we want it to move, but there are a lot of those kinds of things in motion. We can get specific for you down the road, John, but I think those are a couple of things that just jump off of my mind. David?
I could tell you, because, I mean, some of it is not necessarily 100% goal-oriented or major change, but at the more micro level as to the issues that were identified in some of the recommendations. If you look at the warden's report, one of the big changes we see the inmates at or past their minimum dates. And my understanding from talking to people at the prison is that there's a big impact on what you've noted, the population decrease, along with the state programs, because there's really a focus on identifying these numbers and trying to make sure that the people who are eligible for release are pushed, through that funnel and not lingering here and letting stacks of paper. And supporting that, there have been more points of contacts, liaison points, interagency with probation and parole and prison staff in making sure they have that information, somebody's tracking it, it's coming onto this report. They're trying to push where they're hitting the roadblocks they used to hit. From the practice side of it, there were changes in procedures into moving prisoners in and out, getting treatment, getting bail. They set protocols, and I think the president judge issued an operational order as to the policies of seeking treatment and getting released for that, so that it's done systematically and it's tracked and it's done efficiently. They revamped the systems where people were in and out and it wasn't properly tracked, and we ended up with missing prisoners. Nobody knew who they were. That's been eliminated. So, while the major policy goals may still be works in progress, the pieces on the day-to-day operations have been filled a lot. And I'm certain there's probably a long way to go in some spots, and 4 years have gone by. There's probably different social services, different needs, and different resources that could be addressed. It's worth revisiting, but the pieces that were put in place have been working on the underneath the scenes on a functional level, to my knowledge.
Warden, I don't know, do you want to add anything?
At this point in time, no, I was thinking about exactly what Attorney Saltonelli just brought up. I know that we do have weekly meetings with county probation and parole, and other players are called to the table, and that we are just starting now to get into a mental health group that's going to be meeting at least month. Had the first meeting on, I believe it was Tuesday.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll keep you posted. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the public wish to address the board? Bev?
Yeah, thanks. Hi. Bev DeBarros, Quincy Avenue in Scranton. For 3 years, we've been distributing books to the inmates, and the program is slow but going forward. We all rely on donations, used materials, books and magazines from libraries and individuals and so forth. But we could really enhance this program if we had some money. And I'm asking, I think from the commissary fund or the canteen fund, I don't know the difference, but I think one of them is to be used to help the inmates. So if we had $1,000 for a whole year, first I would like to buy 30 dictionaries to have on hand to pass out, and then go by categories for what we could use. There's a big opportunity for education this way. People are there, they have time to read, they have the interest. And I'm thinking history books and geography, lots of American writers like that. So I'm asking for $1,000 for the coming year. And if you break it down, it's like $1 an inmate over the time period of the year. And we could really stretch that money and make things better. That's my ask.
Okay. Can I ask you, Bev, if
Yeah.
you could give us some specifics
Yes.
in terms of the type of books that you want to get? I know you talked about dictionaries, but perhaps some others, and see what we can do about quotes and.
Yeah. When we ourselves buy books that are requested, there's our best source is called thrift books, and they're used books, and we order them at a very good rate, And I would welcome from you also suggestions of what categories or specific books. I'm thinking of,
I think you sent me an email talking about some Bibles, didn't you? Or was that, might have been somebody else?
the Bibles are covered.
Okay.
Exodus Prison Ministry constantly gives us money. Oh, and the Gideons, of course, they provide the Bibles that are used in the chapel
Okay.
there. I don't know what else I could have been talking about Bibles.
Okay. If you could get us something and.
So what, do you want like a list of categories that?
Well, if you can put together a list of books. I think you mentioned you get
I can
some.
put a lot of books for $1,000. I
Well, I
can have
know.
a big, long list.
Yeah, especially, pardon?
We should probably have a librarian or somebody, sort of designate what an appropriate purchase would be. We go to the bookstore and buy $1,000 worth of books. Do we arbitrarily say what we're getting, or do we try to do some kind of systematic look at, what materials do we want to introduce? But
Well,
somebody's got
that's
some-
why
Yeah.
I'm trying to
We want
get
a
some
breakdown.
suggestions.
Well, our
What-
great historian authors that are out there now in paperback, for instance, Ron Chernow, like that. That would
Are
be,
you familiar with what's in the library and what we may need to
Yeah,
read?
what's in our library, nothing, with Bev and the folks that bring the books in, there's a big array, but I was gonna suggest, so thank you for giving me this opportunity, I was gonna
Could
suggest
you
that Bev.
come up to
Yeah,
I was going to suggest that if Beth could come up with a list, it makes it much cleaner based on our policy and how things work with the commissary fund for us to purchase it, rather than for us to cut a check to any individual or entity to purchase books. We can get the books. We could compare prices. I mean, if they could find them someplace, we could also reach out to that same place. I would just rather buy it right from the book company, whether it be Amazon or whomever, ourselves, with the commissary funds, than cut a check for, and no offense to Bev, I mean, it's just cleaner, the way our policy and procedures written up and our rules governing how we're gonna use those commissary funds. It makes it a little dicey to be writing a check out to anybody.
Yeah, because I think she's talking about getting used books at a better rate than buying new books and then
Oh.
that's it.
Quite possibly, but I'd rather have the opportunity to say, hey, you know, tell us what books you need, and we'll check and see what we can get them for, price-wise. I just think, again, it's much cleaner for the canteen fund to be cutting a check to a book
For
company.
that to happen?
Oh, yeah, you know, I don't have any problem with that at all. You know, like, if you, as you said, Bev, if you're getting specific requests, then let's see what those requests are and see. And we might even want to consult with somebody at perhaps the county library system, a librarian, for instance, to perhaps come in and take a look at what we do have. I mean, Warden says nothing, but, and maybe get some suggestions from that person too. They might have some experience on it, but I support your request.
I like what he said about going through, and if the books are shipped to here, given to us, that eliminates, because
A
when
lot
it
of
comes,
work.
when it comes to us, we have to go through them.
Right.
And all that, and then when they come in, a CO has to look through them all again. This is wonderful.
Okay,
So I'll get the list, and
okay.
so maybe when you, say you buy the first 50 books, and you tell me how much it was that you spent, and then I could sort of keep track and build up to maybe 1,000. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the public? All right, well, before we adjourn, is there any other business from any of the members?
Judge, I think your idea about talking with somebody in the library system to maybe help assist,
Oh, yeah, I think
that would be a
That's
good
an
idea. And
excellent
if you don't mind, maybe I'll reach out to somebody and see if we can get somebody to
That'd be great.
help cooperate.
That'd be great. It was David's idea, it wasn't mine.
Good idea, Dave.
Very good idea.
It's the least I owed him for volunteering him for the target practice.
That's
All right,
fine.
so before we adjourn, as we all know, this is our final meeting for the year, so I would just like to thank Commissioner O'Malley and Commissioner Cummings and Abstentia for their participation in the prison board during their terms on the Board of Commissioners. I wish them well in their future endeavors and look forward to seeing them around the county. But thank you, Commissioner O'Malley. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and the second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Happy Christmas, everybody.
Merry
We are
Christmas, everyone.
adjourned.